Hi, you girl, you smell so good.
What can we say about you?
Me
Don't
too,
worry.
me too.
Mwanaume ni jasho.
No, mwanaume mgani?
Mwanaume ni jasho.
Ah, kakolon kangu pia kameweza.
Guys, nani ni msema kweli? Ni mimi ama yeye mwenyewe?
I'm so grateful this month. It's actually afternoon. We started planning shooting this video from as early as 9 a.m. But here we are. A lot of distractions came along the way. But does it matter? What matters is we're here and we are about to make it happen. And my name is Amazing Amos, and this is the Soul Breakfast.
I am Braxini Sangola, very excited, so happy, and most of all, grateful.
And as we have already alluded to it, the video is about gratitude and what that does to different elements of your life.
I remember a certain time in my life when I was a bit low, rather very low. Guys, the worst had happened. This guy over here had COVID. And he wasn't those asymptomatic people like me. His was intense. You'd wake up in the middle of the night, he's struggling to breathe. In the middle of the night, you just see blood oozing from the nose. And what kept me together at that point, guys, can you imagine, was gratitude. I was very, very, very grateful that for one, I can still see him. He's not been taken to quarantine, so well, there is hope. I was telling myself, if God has given him another day, surely he will heal him. We were living a day at a time.
Many months later, we went through COVID. It's a phase behind us now. I mean, as you can see, we are full of gratitude because it was just a phase in our lives that is now behind us. And we are so grateful that that happened because we learned how to be more appreciative about the many opportunities that God gets to give us. And as we wake up every morning, we have a reason to be grateful, to be filled with gratitude in our hearts. This is how I look at gratitude, really. And it's my approach of being grateful every single day. You could pick a leaf or two. So my reason for being grateful every day is whenever I look at my life and I have the option, I have different options in my life. When I can decide whether to wake up at 6 or at 6:30, because there are people who can only wake up at a specific time in their lives. They are almost programmed, or they are in environments that cannot allow them to just decide when to wake up. Or when I decide whether to put on this coat or the other, I have the power of options. When I can decide whether to have tea in the morning or to have uji or to have juice, it makes me happy. And sometimes you look at it and only imagine that people who are grateful or people who have options are people who are actually rich, which is really far away from the truth. Look at this. If you have one pair of shoes, you still have the option of either to wear the shoes or to actually walk barefoot. If you only have one piece of cloth, then you still have the option of whether either to put on that piece of cloth or to stay naked. I mean, it's a free world. Don't do it though. Guys, the people who don't even have the foot, they don't even have the leg. So their issue is not whether they have shoes or not. The issue is if only I could have that foot. So every day I'm reminded, whenever I look at my life around me and I have options, it makes me very grateful.
People, we are saying it's not about what you don't have. It's about what you have. And for that, be grateful for it and use it to the glory of God. You hear very many people complaining that they have too much workload, they are unable to manage. But do you know there are others who are looking for that job? Be grateful in that job and excel in it. Ask God for wisdom, strength. Stop complaining and be the best. Others complain about their bosses. Well, I'm aware there are very many toxic bosses around. But guys, smile at your boss, pray for them, and be grateful for the time that you have with that person you consider toxic.
The story doesn't end there. Every single day you are awake, every single day you can afford to breathe. I remember there's a time we went to visit one of our friends who had been very instrumental in our outfits, and we didn't know they were actually unwell. We had called them previously, and they mentioned that they are actually unwell. We just didn't know the degree of how bad it was until we actually went visiting to give them business. And when we got there, we were so shook. Reason being, how they sounded on phone and the state they were actually in were worlds apart.
Can you imagine people, someone is on oxygen and they are still able to make your clothes? Because this person is a tailor.
And I had to ask, what gives you the motivation to sound the way you do? What keeps you going? How were you able to make that conversation so easy when you are in this actual state? And this is what they told me, that God had the option of taking them away. God had the power to make them disappear, or even take customers like ourselves away from their lives completely. But the fact that God still allowed them in that particular state to still be able to get customers, people who trust in their expertise, in their skill, to give them business, which eventually sustains them in their business, because we get to pay for such business, is what they were grateful for. So sometimes, as she said, you could focus more on what you do not have or what is not working in your life, and you fail to see the many positivities, the many flowers, the many things that can make you happy and give you a reason to be grateful for.
I was just telling him in the morning that when you think you're at your rock bottom, God is still there with you, and a reason for you to be grateful, because if God was not there, then the situation would have been worse.
We were involved in an accident not too long ago, and at that very moment I was quite emotional and almost bitter. And so she said exactly what she said now, that look, if God didn't really have a purpose for your life, if he wasn't in all this situation, could you imagine how bad this accident would have been? Maybe you'd have lost part of your body. Here is a situation where the car is in a mess, it's actually a wreck, but you are full, you didn't come out with a scratch despite all the windows shattering, despite everything that actually happened. And so it took me back that look, as long as I'm alive, as long as I have these two hands, as long as I have all these things that I consider my own, that God has blessed me with, I can actually work my way back to actually owning another car, or even repairing the one that was involved in the accident. So I had a reason immediately to feel much, much, much better.
Back to our 3 points, guys. Be grateful at all times, whether good or bad. Be grateful when you feel you don't have a reason to. Look into the issue and you will see the greatness of God. A reason for you to be grateful.
Yes.
Last one.
And whenever you realize that when you can look at your life and see that you have options, then you have every reason to be grateful, because options are a sign that you are highly blessed, highly favored.
It's a wrap, guys.
Oh, remember to subscribe, yeah? Remember to follow us, subscribe,
More
share with your friends.
importantly, be grateful.